What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Week 10 NFL Market Review. This is the video that I do each week where we go through the slate. I will give you my analysis on some of these lines, leans on some of these games, talk about some spots that I think could be advantageous for you to bet on this weekend. And we've got some really great matchups, so I'm excited for Week 10. Coming off a Week 9 where we went 2-1 on Thursday Night Football, 1-2 on Sunday, and then 2-2 on Monday. So this was pretty much a juiced week, a flat week overall. We had a really big college weekend, which helped us get over the hump. And we had a nice finish to October. We finished well into the green in October. We're now into the green in November. So good vibes, mojo's going. Let's keep it up. Let's keep it going. All right. So before I get into the first game, which is Thursday Night Football, a quick reminder, as I always do, all of my free plays, before I post them anywhere else, they go on the Action app. So down in the description, there's a link to download the Action app if you don't have it. It's a great tool if you're just a sports bettor. It's great to read articles, get other people's opinions, see line movement, all that cool stuff. And if you use my link down in the description, it helps us out. So all of my free plays go up on there. I've already got a free play up on there for Sunday. So you can go check that out on the Action app down below. All right, let's get into it. Thursday Night Football, the Bengals taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Cincinnati is getting 6 in most spots in this game. I do see a 6.5 and a 5.5 out there, so there's some differences that you might have. This is a game where you could be shopping depending on which side you like. And the total sitting at 53. And I think this is a really simple game, guys. Really, as the season goes on, you're going to find smaller and smaller edges. The lines get sharper, and sometimes you just need to simplify the handicap a little bit. And this is a divisional game in prime time, and they're in the first matchup. These teams played each other incredibly close. The game went to overtime. The Bengals actually had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter of that game before blowing it and going to overtime. They actually could have won the game. They missed the kick in overtime, turned the ball over, so many crazy things. The Ravens ended up winning by 3. So they actually covered the spread in that game, which was 2.5. But the Bengals covered teasers in that game. Now you're getting 6 on the road with Cincinnati, coming off a big win. Both of these teams coming off of big wins, both putting up 40-plus points in their last game. And I just think that Cincinnati's going to be able to stay in this, throw on that Baltimore secondary, which I'm not a huge fan of. One of the issues that the Ravens have had this season, although it's been masked a bit by their really great stellar offense and their stellar rushing attack, but the secondary is a little bit of an issue, and the pass rush is a bit of an issue. They don't really get a lot of pressure unless they're going to send more than 4. And Joe Burrow is very good against the blitz, but he's very good as well in a clean pocket. He's one of the few elite quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of a true pocket passer. So I think he can do some damage here. First game, he threw 5 touchdowns in that matchup. Not having T. Higgins this week, which it looks like he probably isn't going to play, is a bit of a blow, but I think the Bengals could do more than enough here. Chase Brown has looked good rushing the ball. He had a really big game against the Raiders. You now throw in Khalil Herbert. I'm not sure what his role is going to be on such a short week, but if anything, maybe utilize him here and there or just as a smokescreen, whatever the case may be. But I think this is a likely, similar to the first game, a bit of an offensive matchup. I don't know that I love the over 53 because totals that have steamed up into the 50s this season are actually trending well to the under, over 60% to the under when you have a total in the 50s. So I'm not sure that I would bet the over, especially in a primetime spot. But, if you're the Bengals, man, 4-5, the Ravens come off of a blowout win over a super inferior team like the Broncos. And you're 4-5. You're not out of it yet, right? I mean, to me, I think it's a long shot for their season, but they're not going to play like it's a long shot. Divisional games always tend to play close, especially AFC North divisional games. So give me Cincy in this one +6. I think it's a pretty simple one there. All right, the next game up is an international game. We're back to the overseas games, the Giants versus the Panthers. This is the first game in Germany. New York's laying 5.5, and you can even see some 6s popping up on the board. 40.5 is currently the total. Yeah, I haven't bet an international game yet this season. There are trends for them. The trends lean heavily towards the favorite. And I actually think the favorite so far this season is perfect in the international games. So, if you want to play the Giants, but I don't have the Giants 6 points better than the Panthers on a neutral. I have this like 3.5, maybe 4 if I push it. I'm not high on the Giants. So I'm not really sure how you get to this line. But at the same time, I'm not going to play Carolina, especially coming off of an outright win as a 7-point dog. If there was ever a spot to play them, it would have been last week, not this week for me. with Bryce Young and company traveling overseas. So this game is a complete and total pass for me. I don't have much more thoughts on it. All right, Buffalo taking on Indianapolis. The Bills versus the Colts. 4 is the line here in most spots, although I see 4.5 and I see a 3.5 that just popped up on DraftKings. So there's some action on probably both sides of this game, but Buffalo's laying 4 right now, consensus line, total at 47. You can find a 46.5 if you like the over. I was on the Bills last week, -6 against the Dolphins, but I was not impressed with how their defense played. I thought the game plan was incorrect. I thought they played far too conservative. And even though they end up winning the game, it's an emotional win in a divisional matchup on a walk-off 61-yard field goal. Tyler Bass, credit to him for making it. But man, that's a tough spot to follow up with then hitting the road against a team that's going to be desperate for this game. The Colts, again, similar to the Bengals, Colts sitting at 4-5. They just played the Vikings tough. They didn't score an offensive touchdown. It's definitely a concern, but it's really hard. That Minnesota defense is very good, and they're very difficult to run the ball against, which is what you want to do with if that's what the Colts have to do. They have to have rushing success in this matchup. And Josh Allen is great. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks, and I'm high on the Bills, but I would lean to the Colts in this one, getting 4 as a home dog. Not sure if they win the game, but I think they can keep this close, and I think this is your classic buy low, sell high. Another thing to consider, sometimes it's as simple as looking at records. I know that sounds crazy. I make sharp content, contrarian content. Sometimes you just look at the records and you say, man, they're 7-2, they're 4-5. The Bills have a comfortable AFC East lead in that division. They don't need this game. I know that sounds crazy. They're not going to play like they don't need this game, but the Colts certainly need it a lot more if they're going to compete in the AFC South or just compete for a wild card spot. A little bit of a lean here to the Colts. And I think I honestly think that they'll be similar to the Bengals. I think they're live in this game. So give me Indianapolis getting 4 at home. I don't have an opinion on this total, although I would lean slightly to the under at 47 because 47 is a key number. Remember that. All right. Next game up, you've got the Falcons taking on the Saints. Atlanta laying 3.5 across the board. Totals 46.5. Again, you want to keep this as simple as humanly possible, right? The Saints just fired their head coach. This is a play on spot for a team that loses their head coach. Dennis Allen, the hiring of him made no sense to begin with. They were flying high when they were 2-0 to start the season, then lost 7 straight games. They actually dominated Carolina statistically on Sunday, beat them in most facets of that game, but just couldn't finish it out. It was actually astonishing that they did lose the game outright. But this just creates a little bit of a buy low scenario. And the Falcons, listen, I think the Falcons are a good offensive team, but I don't really they've played Tampa twice. They've played the Saints. They played Carolina, right? They haven't faced too many good teams. I'm interested to see how they come out in this game as a road divisional favorite against a team that might get the boost. The players seem to love Rizzi. Rizzi is stepping in as the interim head coach. I saw a story earlier that they made T-shirts with his face on it when he got the job. Little things like that, again, like I mentioned earlier, the lines are so sharp. You're looking for any possible edge. So what I consider is something you can't quantify, right? But if what I consider players love the specific coach who might be a special teams guy or a defensive guy, and then suddenly now coach is out of the way. By the way, they also dumped Lattimore. He hasn't really played much this year, but they get rid of some baggage there. Then the coach that everyone loves comes in. They're all hyped. They're excited. One game, that initial boost can sometimes be an edge that's not quantified in the market. So I think that is a playable thing. It happened earlier this year with the Jets. They played the Bills very, very close. If you remember, they lost by 3 right after firing Saleh. But if you watch it, they should have won that game. So I like the Saints getting 3.5. It's a key number. I can see this game landing on a field goal. The first time these two teams played in Atlanta. Now, I know this is not the same Saints team that it was back then, but the Falcons needed a walk-off field goal to beat them. Carr's a high-variance quarterback. I think he can keep you in this game. And the Falcons, one thing to watch out for is that pass rush, which I've talked about in so many videos, but they don't generate a strong pass rush. And the one way to really throw Derek Carr off is to get pressure on him because he makes silly mistakes and bad throws when he's pressured. Falcons have not been able to get any pressure, so they'll have a better matchup against this offensive line of the Saints, which has not been good. But from what I've seen so far this season, why would I trust that they can get pressure on him? So they got to prove it. I like the Saints getting 3.5 in this game. The Vikings are on the road in Jacksonville. Minnesota's laying 5 or 5.5, depending on where you look. Totals at 45. They looked good on Sunday Night Football. The final score was maybe a little bit misleading. They had some chances that they didn't convert on. Darnold threw a pick in the end zone. Maybe should have beaten the Colts by a little bit more, but that was also an advantageous matchup for them. I think the Jaguars' offense actually matches up a little bit better, and I think they will be able to put up some more points. Remember, Indy did not score an offensive touchdown in that game, but the Jaguars' defense is so bad. It is so bad, and I just don't see... I'm not seeing any reason why Sam Darnold can't pick apart their man coverage. They play a lot of man. Justin Jefferson should have a big game. Oh, man. Addison should have... All these guys should feast. Hawkinson, if he's back. Yeah, I would lean to Indy here, but I would also lean to the over in this game, even though I know the Vikings have a very good defense. But I think the Jaguars are going to be playing from behind, and they're going to have to throw. And I could see this game going over. And Minnesota's been really good as a road favorite. So, they've played really well on the road in a lot of these games this season. So lean here to the Vikings. They don't have much on this game. Lean to the Vikings, lean over 45. The over might actually be my stronger lean in this game. I'm usually stick to sides, do a little bit of totals here and there, but I actually like this over 45 quite a bit because remember 46, this is something that a lot of people won't talk about. 46, 47, 48, these are all key numbers. So if this gets to like 45.5, now you're approaching a key number. So I kind of like the over 45 in that game. All right, Steelers taking on the Commanders. Pittsburgh is getting 3 across the board basically here. Juice 3 though at -115. At Washington, totals at 45.5. This is a really, really interesting game to me because if you told me before the season started that I'd be looking at a Week 10 game between the Steelers and Commanders, division leaders, 6-2, 7-2, I would have laughed at you. I would have said you're crazy, but here we are, right? It's the NFL. And you've got, obviously, Russ playing really well for Pittsburgh. Man, Tomlin coming off of a bye, catching points is so irresistible. And the Commanders have been playing with fire lately, guys. Be real. If you watch that game against the Giants had to go for 2 twice. They're 1 2-point conversion away from covering that game and being within a field goal, potentially being able to tie that game late. Washington played well, overall, but they, I don't know. There wasn't a blowout to me. The game didn't have the feel of a blowout. It didn't have that feel either when they first played the Giants, but this is going to be the best defense for sure that they've come across. I know they played the Ravens, but the Steelers defense is better. If you look at the numbers, they're objectively better. And that pass rush is lethal. I think TJ Watt can have a good game. And I got to see, Russ has been playing really well and the Steelers have weapons. Najee Harris is running the ball really well. I'm really interested to see how this game turns out. If this comes back to 2.5, it was at 2.5. If it does come back, then you have an excellent, I think, teaser leg with Pittsburgh. But I just like Pitt +3, even at the juice price of -115. I think it's worth it, and I think they're going to be right there at the end of this game. I think they win this game. So I've got Pittsburgh, and like if we're just talking bottom line numbers, I have Pitt as the better team because of the defense. That defense is the difference, especially. And I thought the upgrade, switching to Russ is an upgrade at quarterback. So I've got Pitt better than Washington in my power ratings. So when you adjust for home field, I have this as like Commanders -1. Where's this 3 coming from? To me, it doesn't make any sense. I lean Pittsburgh +3 in that game. All right, the Broncos taking on the Chiefs. This is an AFC West divisional game. Denver's getting 8 points on the road, a pretty big spread, similar to what they got on Sunday against the Ravens. 41.5 is the total. You've got the Chiefs sitting at -8, which is a prime teaser territory, right? You could tease them down to -2. Maybe you want to combine that with Pitt. I like that leg as well. The thing about the Chiefs here is very simple to me. On last week's show, I told you guys that the Monday night game, I ended up not betting the spread on Monday night, but I said to you guys, this is really simple. Mahomes wins these games, but he doesn't cover them. So the easy, like no-brainer lean would be to Tampa, but I ended up not playing it. I just went with props and stuff. But this is another one of those games. Like Mahomes wins these games, but he doesn't cover them. And maybe this line wouldn't be where it is if the Broncos didn't just get blown out, like destroyed by the Ravens. Now, I think Denver is still overrated a little bit. So I won't be playing them in this game. But would I be surprised if this is a 7-point win for the Chiefs? Of course not, because this is what they do. They kind of like play with their food a little bit, and they'll end up winning this game. And they may cover, but the lean has to be Denver. But I probably won't end up playing this game. But the Broncos could be, what I'm trying to say is, a little bit of a buy low. That you get blown out. Now you go play a divisional team, and the spread is basically right around the same, right? So they could be a little bit of a buy low. Divisional games are just different. And listen, if the Chiefs go undefeated, the Chiefs might go undefeated. They might go. If you look at their schedule, they got a shot to go undefeated. I think Buffalo is probably the toughest game they have left, which is next week. So maybe you have the angle here of that too. Here, looking ahead to the Bills. The Bills game. To me, it's Broncos or nothing here. I'm not going to lay a big number with Mahomes. I've never done that. I've always stayed away from him. I always basically auto fire on him when he's a small favorite or a dog. But nothing for me on this game unless you're interested in the Broncos. The last thing I'll say about that game too is the Spagnuolo defenses. Spags usually has his the game on Monday with Tampa, and earlier in the season against other more experienced quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson week 1, but he doesn't really have problems with these younger rookie quarterbacks. They tend to really take care of business. So that's why I'm saying I'm very confident the Chiefs win this game, but maybe the back door's open or something like that. So just be careful with the points, but I think Kansas City probably improves to 9-0. Crazy. What a run they're on. All right, the Pats on the road in Chicago. The Patriots getting 6 points versus the Bears. Totals at 39. New England comes off of an overtime loss. That was a crushing defeat. But really, they should have lost the game in regulation. The miraculous touchdown pass to that Drake made through into the end zone. I was actually happy about that because I have Ramondre Stevenson on my fantasy team. And that helped me win. So I was like, wow, what an amazing play. And it helped me out. So that was cool. Listen, the Bears, you just got to ask yourself, what are we doing here? If you're laying 6 with the Bears, with the way they have looked, right? That you might look back on the Bears season at the end of this whole thing and say that Hail Mary was the dagger. That was that game against Washington was the one that maybe sealed their fate. Because right after the game, in last week's market review that I did, I said Chicago was a no-brainer spot to back them, play on them after a loss like that. But the problem was what I heard after the game with the players questioning the coaching decisions. Why are we running the ball with an offensive lineman? Why are we not using a timeout here? Why are we not cared about the play leading up to the Hail Mary, the play before? All these things start to pile up. Last week against Arizona, you see Caleb Williams scrambling for his life, and DJ Moore walks off the field while the play is active. These are horrific signs for a team, and I think that they could be dead. This could be a team that's dead, even though they're not statistically out of it and their record is not terrible. But man, there is not much to look at. I don't think I've ever seen a 4-4 football team look this bad. I was 4-3 going into last week, and look what they did against Arizona, 29-9, 9 points, and the way they look so defeated. I don't know how you turn around and then lay 6 with that team. So I got to lean to the Patriots here, but I don't want to play them off an overtime loss, an emotional overtime loss on the road, back-to-back road games. I can't back either team is what I'm getting at in this spot. But if you force me to play it, I'd probably look at the under, or I'd look at the Patriots getting 6, because no way am I laying 6 with what I've seen from the Bears. No shot. All right. Next game, we've got the 49ers taking on the Buccaneers. San Francisco's laying 5.5 in Tampa. Totals at 50.5. And this is I think one of the more interesting spots of the week. I'm seeing 5.5s across the board, but this morning there was a 5. And I actually I sent out my picks this morning to our subscribers. And in the little tiny note, I said, I want to play San Francisco, but I want to see where the floor is, because this was 6.5, came down 5.5, 5. And now I got bought. It looks like it's settled at 5.5. So 5 might have been the floor that I missed out on. But I think the spot's very advantageous for San Francisco. There's only just a few things that I question here. So they're coming out of the bye week. They've been great in these spots. Kyle Shanahan on extended rest has been great. You get back, it looks like you're going to get back McCaffrey. You're going to get back Debo. You're going to get Kittle. Ayuk is lost, but it looks like other than that, you have a pretty healthy offense now for the first time in a long time for this team, and a very favorable matchup. What did the Chiefs do to the Bucs on a Monday Night Football? I was very confused by their first half game plan. They were throwing the ball a lot of passing attempts from Mahomes. Then in the second half, they got down and dirty, and they just ran like Hunt. Look at, because the reason why I'm thinking about this, because I had the Kareem Hunt rushing prop, and in the first half he has 14 yards rushing. and his line was like 63 or something. And then he just annihilated it in the second half. He ended up like nearly 100 yards rushing because they just said, all right, you know what? We're just going to pound the rock. And Tampa has surrendered a lot of rushing yards this season. That is what San Francisco is going to do. I see no reason why they shouldn't be able to run the ball all over them in this game. My only concern, and Tampa's on short rest, by the way, my only concern is the other side. That offense looks good, man. Like I've said from the first few weeks of the season, I had Tampa pegged as kind of a team that would regress, that Baker would start playing much worse. But they have really, even without Evans and Godwin, there's just like a chemistry about that team. Otten's playing really well. The three-headed running back thing they have going on is kind of sneaky good. And they just keep themselves in games. Baker keeps them in games because he's constantly throwing. They throw a lot. Liam Cohen's done an amazing job with that offense. Throw a lot. And if the spread here is right, similar to what it was on Monday Night Football, they should be playing from behind a little bit. If they're playing from behind in this game, throw. And he just keeps them in game. Baker just keeps them in games. And if you're going to beat the Niners, you want to throw the ball on them, right? You don't want to get smash mouth and try to run on that defense. You want to throw against those DBs. So, if this was lower, I'd be all over San Francisco. At 5.5, I lean their side. But, you're getting nearly a full touchdown with a home dog. So it's a tough spot. Short rest. One thing I can tell you in this spot or about this game is that Kyle Shanahan on short rest as a road favorite in his coaching career with the 49ers is 6-0 straight up and against the spread. Very small sample size, but that just kind of gives you an idea of how he's very good when he has extra time to prep, right? And the matchup's advantageous. So I got to lean here to the 49ers. If this number were to get better, if some steam would come in and push this down, give me a 5, give me a 4.5, I would then take it. I would take it on San Francisco. All right, next game, the Titans taking on the Chargers. LA is laying 7.5 points, over under set at 38. The Chargers are, as of right now, perfect to the under this season. None of their games have gone over. They have the lowest average point total in their games in the NFL. Not really seeing why that should stop this week. I actually think the Titans have a solid defense. And we know the Chargers have a solid defense. So whether you get Levis or Rudolph in this game, I'm not even sure who is starting, but I got to lean under here. The 7.5 is too high for me. I would not lay 7.5. You want to take LA in a teaser? Absolutely. Good teaser leg. But I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee covers this. The only issue with me taking the 7.5 is they played that overtime game against the Patriots, which I mentioned earlier, for the Pats Bears. So I'm not looking to back teams off of overtime games, whether they win or lose, because it's just statistically, you're on the field for a lot more plays. It's a lot more, a lot more energy spent. It's just exhausting. The NFL is exhausting as it is to play an overtime game. It's just, I can't. So whenever I see a game go to overtime, long story short, is I just avoid those two teams the next week, unless there's a super profitable trend or some kind of spot they're in. But I just tend to ignore them. So, but I would lean under in this. 38 is 2017 like you had on Sunday. You cash 2016, whatever, 17-14, but 38, remember, 37 and 38, when you get to the 30s, those are the key numbers. Like 40 is not really, 41, not really. It's 43, and then it's 38 for the key numbers on the totals when you're talking about really low totals. So I would lean under in this game. All right, the Eagles taking on the Cowboys. Philly laying 7 on the road. Totals 42. Obviously, this line is very, very large because of the Dak Prescott injury. He's going to be out for a few weeks. Philly was the teaser leg, one of the teaser legs I had on Sunday. That was my only win. And man, what a freaking stupid sweat. They're up 22-0. The Jaguars get a defensive touchdown, then the momentum turns and they get back into the game. They should have never been in that game. The over should have never cashed in that game. Wild game. I'm really I have futures on Philly. Before the season started, I'm very high on Philly, but they continue to do these stupid things. And I don't know what it's going to take. Like, do they need to get rid of Sirianni for this team to take the next level? Because I don't see a lot of holes in this roster. They're so good top to bottom that they should never have these types of issues. Like, it's one thing to play a competitive game against. Like, if the Jags went in there, had a good game plan, the offense played well, that's completely different than you having a 22-0 lead and allowing the team to just let them right back into the game is so silly. And that stuff worries me about the Eagles, not just long-term, but in this game. because we've seen this story before. Prescott gets hurt, Cooper Rush comes in, and he won his first start. The last time this happened, he won the game outright. And we see this happen all the time. We've seen this several times this season. Jameis Winston just did this as a 9-point dog at home against the Ravens. Flacco did it for the Colts, won a game outright in his first start. Dalton did it for the Panthers, won a game outright in his first start. You have these like vet QBs that sit on the bench, and Cooper Rush has not had a ton of time in this league, but he's played before. He's played enough games. And he sit on the bench, observe, and then you get a shot, and these guys surprise you a little bit. I cannot lay 7 with the Eagles on the road based on what I've seen from this team so far this year. I think they're super talented. They're super good. They have a massive rushing advantage in this game. They should, if they struggle with this game, this is why I can't lay 7 with them. They have every advantage on the board, and I still don't trust them. I would lean slightly to the Cowboys plus 7. Cooper Rush coming in, maybe these, I don't know. This game just screams to me, stay away. I kind of like the under 42. If Dallas is getting a little bit healthier on defense and if they're going to show up, this is a divisional game, big home divisional dog. But no way. I think the biggest thing here to like the learning opportunity of this game, Philly has shown you time and time again that you should not trust them laying a big number like this at home. So why would you do it on the road? I think Philly minus 7 is probably a negative EV bet if I had to guess. So I'd lean to the Cowboys. I'd lean to the under, but I'm probably just completely off of that game. All right, the Jets taking on the Cardinals. This line has flipped. This is basically a pick, but this is an interesting game because the line has flipped. It was Arizona -1, -1.5. It's now Jets -1. Totals at 46. That's been also steamed up a little bit. This sets up to be a great spot for the Jets. Just like it was last week when I told you guys it's a great spot for the Jets against the Texans, but at the same time, it's the Jets. And I'll tell you that again this week. Nothing has changed in my mind just because they get one win against an injury-riddled team on a short week. Arizona's playing really well offensively. You saw what, even though they beat the Texans, Joe Mixon ran all over them. Why am I to believe that suddenly James Conner's not going to be able to run on this Jets defense? They've been poor against the rush. Arizona's a very good rushing team. Kyler Murray is very frisky. They're playing well. They're at the top of the division, 5-4. The spot here says Jets against a team that's been wildly inconsistent. The Arizona Cardinals have been for the last few years wildly inconsistent. So the fact that they've won 3 games in a row now screams that they're going to be due for a loss. And the Jets should have offensive success, even if their defense struggles a bit against the run. They should have success on the other side, and maybe that's why this total has steamed up a little bit because people are seeing the same thing I'm seeing. But, now if this gets to New York -1.5, you now have a pretty appealing home dog as a teaser leg, taking Arizona up to 7.5. So for me, I lean Jets because of the situational spot, but this is another game that I probably am just going to lay off of. If the Cardinals get to 1.5, consider a teaser because just like on Thursday, and just like all year, the Jets are not going to win any games or many games by margin. So if they win this game on the road, I don't think they blow out Arizona. I think Arizona's in it to the very end, especially with how they're playing offensively. And I said this before the season started, I like Gannon as a head coach, and he's doing a really good job. So small lean to the Jets in that game. I'd play Arizona in a teaser if it gets to 1.5. The Lions taking on the Texans. Detroit's -3.5 on the road in Houston, and the total's 49. I'll give you, to be completely honest, I'm a little annoyed by this game, or full disclosure, like I had this all written out to release Houston plus 4.5, I think it was, right at the open, or 4.5. And then I wasn't quick enough and it was just gone. And the threes, they were all threes. Now we see 3.5. Not surprised that this is where it landed because I thought the opener was off. I think this is a great situational spot for Houston. It just depends on, sometimes when you step in front of a team like Detroit, and I love that team. I have futures on them. But when you step in front of them, you're kind of trying to catch a falling knife, right? And they've now won, 5 games in a row, all pretty much in convincing fashion. It's really hard to justify betting against the Lions. But if there was ever a sleepy spot for them, if you look at the remainder of their schedule, if there's going to be a game they lose, this is to me lines up to be one of those games. You're laying 3.5 on the road. This is your back-to-back road games. 2 of your last 3 games, you got road divisional wins. I mean, this has got to be market high, total peak value for the Lions. I do have them as the number 1 team in my power rating, so I think they're right now the best team in the NFC and the best team in the NFL. But if Houston gets back Nico Collins, and you're on extended rest after you lost on and pretty much embarrassed on prime time, losing to the Jets. Extended rest as a home dog. Stroud has been good in his career as a home dog, but not good as a favorite. You know, I got to lean Texans here, plus 3.5, as much as it hurts me, because I don't think I've lost. I don't think I've lost. I think I'm perfect betting on the lines this year, but that's not really that hard to do because they're just winning and covering every game. So I really, really like Detroit. I'm really high on them, and I won't get in front of them because I'm not trying to catch a falling knife here. But if this number gets better, I might sprinkle Houston. And I think they could be live to win the game outright. Just my thoughts. All right, Monday Night Football, the Dolphins taking on the Rams. Miami +1 is the line. Miami was 2.5, so obviously they've taken some action. Total's at 50. I think that's where I'd go in this game. I think this could be another high-scoring game. It's been kind of fun this season in the NFL because all the if you guys have noticed, if you've been a sub for the last few years, which a lot of people who are subs now were subs last year and the year before, we used to play so many unders when unders were the vibe. Those were the trend. Unders were hitting like crazy. And if you notice this year, I completely stopped betting unders because the overs are hitting and the offenses are coming back. And sometimes, you know, you have to just like anticipate it. You're not going to always time it properly, but if you start seeing the trend, you know, you can kind of anticipate it coming. And first few weeks I kind of saw, well, the offenses look like they're coming back a little bit. Now they're definitely back. We have multiple games in the 50s every week. Primetime games are going over. I think this could be another game where both offenses just get what they want. I'm not impressed by either of these defenses, but I'm a little bit interested here. Miami taking money going down from 2.5 to 1. I mean, I think the Rams are better than the Dolphins. I'm not high on the Dolphins. This is an indoor game, so it's not like the elements or the weather will affect Miami, but they haven't been good on the road. I think if Buffalo had a more solid game plan last week on defense, they would have won that game by 10 plus. But they just kind of sat back and said, we're going to avoid the explosive play, the bomb. We don't want a 60-yard bomb to Tyreek Hill. So you just sit back, but as a result, you give up everything underneath. I mean, you give up everything. Any short throw that Tua wanted, 10 yards or less, he got. Any run they wanted, they got. I thought that was a weak game plan, and it nearly cost them the game. You got to trust your DB. They've had a good secondary all season long. So I didn't really understand the game plan, but they got away with it. But I think it made Miami look a little bit better than they actually are. And I know Tua's coming back now, third game now, if the concussion settling in, the offense is going to get a little bit smoother, a little bit better. But I also like the way the Rams have been playing. But I don't want to back them because, again, the overtime win that they got, the walk-off touchdown pass. So I would lean over in this game. I think I kind of like the over 50, even though the 50 totals have not been that great. But this one's just sitting right at 50. But if you can get maybe a 49.5 or something that might be out there, I would lean over in this game. But that's really it. Not much else. I don't feel strongly either way on the side in that one. All right, that is week 10. We did better on time this week. I'm trying to avoid going like over 40, 45 minutes. So right about a half hour, not too bad. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I gave you some leans. I gave you some situational spots to watch out for. Use the link down below, guys, the Action Network app. Download it and get my plays on there. I have a play posted for Sunday, and I might also post my Thursday Night Football play on there as well, maybe a prop or two. So make sure you follow me on the app so that you get the early lines with me in case they move. Very often I'll have a play on the app and the line will move. But if you follow me, you can get it with me. All right? So have a great week 10, everybody. Thanks for watching. Let's get it.